It's time for Making a Living with Maggie Mistel, one of the nation's best-known career coaches. Ready to soul search, research, and job search into your ideal career? Career Happy Hour starts now.
Hi, and welcome to Making a Living with Maggie. I'm Maggie Mistel, excited to be with you as your career coach, sharing what's been going on with me in terms of things that can inspire you. That's right. I'm always looking for ways to do work I love so I can help you do work that you love and really live your life purpose, right? Be here, have it be meaningful, impactful, fun, exciting, energizing. That's why it's called Career Happy Hour. Right. We're here to help you be happy at work, basically. Really. So one of the things that I'm doing on that is I'm excited to share that I'll be the opening keynote for the annual conference of the California Career Development Association. The conference theme this year is Harmony in Progress, and it's all about nurturing mental health, career growth, and life balance. And that's happening next month. I'm so excited about that. And my focus is going to be on redefining work-life balance, which also happens to be the tip in this month's episode. So stay tuned for that so you can get some support with your own work-life balance. Also, in terms of walking the talk, I took some much appreciated time off this month. I went with my family on a cruise to the Caribbean for spring break. We also celebrated the 80th birthday of my father-in-law. That's right, 80th birthday. And I thought, you might want to hear some advice from octogenarians, right? People that have lived 80 years, age and wisdom, get experience. Let's benefit from all that. So I did some research and found some interesting tips. One article was on thebeat.com, and I'll put a link in the show notes. And I pulled out they shared 10 tips that you can, get from these octogenarians. And I pulled out 3 that I thought would inspire your own career and life journey so that you could be happy and healthy for a long time too. So here we go. Here's the first one. Eat as if your life depends on it. And the article mentions whole foods, fruits and veggies. And of course, I agree, right? We need to eat well, to feel well, and be well. And I believe in this so much that it actually matters in your career. What you eat matters in terms of brain foods, right? And there's things you can avoid that deteriorate your brain. And so I wrote about brain foods that you can eat and avoid before an interview. And I'll put a link in the show notes because I want you to know, again, walking the talk, right? I'm trying to live this happy, long life working and doing what I love as well. So I'll share a link to that in the show notes in case I know from what I'm hearing from many of you that you are job interviewing. And this way you can eat some great brain foods, avoid some things that might take the energy out of you. And this way you can present your best self. Also, they said to keep it moving. It's another tip from octogenarians. The authors say to get some aerobic exercise every day and get out in nature. That's right. Get out in nature. Get in the sun. Walk around, see the trees, the flowers. We're in spring now. So there's a lot of nature popping up. It can be revitalizing to feel that life again, to see life again, growing all around you. And that's a form of self-care. And I learned about self-care and the value of strength training as we age as well. In fact, I did an entire podcast with the fitness expert, Michelle Gresh, on the connection between self-care and happiness. So you can check that out for more tips and advice. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. And speaking of happiness, the octogenarians say, choose happiness now. They say it helps to focus on all that you are grateful for and recommend keeping a gratitude journal to focus your attention on all your blessings. I often recommend to my clients, especially those who aren't in the best mindset, to focus on the things in work that are working. All right, maybe things are going wrong. Maybe you're not so happy with your boss or maybe the type of work you're doing, but maybe you enjoy your coworkers. Maybe you have some really great friends at work who make you laugh, right? Or maybe you actually live really close to work and it's an easy commute, right? So you're not stressed out the beginning or end of your day. Or maybe you get to travel to interesting places with your job. Whatever your work situation, maybe it's not perfect. And again, we keep listening because I'm all about soul search, research, and job search to get you to that ideal. But in the meantime, and as you're working through that, support yourself with a productive mindset where you can focus on all the things that are working, or even the small things that are working. Speaking of good things and important things that are working for us, I have a great guest today. She's very good. Her name is Vicki Salemi. I actually interviewed her and met her when I was doing my SiriusXM show, and we recently reconnected. She is a career expert for Monster, and she's also a nationally syndicated columnist writing Vicky on Careers for Tribune. So Vicky and I will discuss work trends from their 2024 Work Watch report from Monster and what you can do to manage your career well. A lot of changes going on always. I think the pace has perhaps picked up. With AI and other things affecting us, we want to be smart about how we're managing our careers. So Vicky and I have a really robust discussion about that. So you want to stay tuned for that, and including that work-life balance tip and so much more right here on Making a Living with Maggie. When you do what is aligned with who you truly are, you feel peace. It's when you're out of alignment with your life purpose that life and work can feel stressful. Earlier this week, a client told me she would not be where she is today without my coaching. I was grateful, humbled, and honored. She said her sessions boost her confidence and hold her accountable to go after her highest goals, even though they scare her. It was a heartfelt moment for sure. It's pure joy to see clients expand their worlds and reach their full potential. If you want to reach your full potential, you might want to ask yourself, is this the best use of my time? Am I living the life that wants to live in me? And truly listen to your own inner truth. It will not steer you wrong. As I posted on my Making a Living with Maggie Mistel Facebook page, intuition is the language of the soul. Learn to listen. For more career and life purpose insights, you might want to sign up for my monthly newsletter, sent the first Friday of each month. Feel the regular and consistent support and encouragement to do what you love and make a great living. Sign up at maggiemistel.com/newsletter. A link will also be in the show notes. Vicky Salemi is a career expert for Monster and nationally syndicated columnist writing Vicky on Careers for Tribune. She's an author, keynote speaker, and previously worked in corporate HR and recruiting for 15 years. Find her at Vicky Salemi on Instagram and X, which I will put a link to in the show notes. Welcome, Vicky.
Hi, Maggie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I mean, you and I met way back in the SiriusXM days, and we're able to keep in touch since then. And it's so good to follow your career and get to share your advice with everyone today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So recently, Vicky, you wrote an article in the New York Post. It titled 6 Ways to Home In and Land That Elusive Job. And I was honored to contribute, so thanks for that. But recently, some companies have made the headlines themselves for changing their hiring standards to focus less on experience and job competence. So I'm so curious in terms of what you're seeing and what factors companies are considering in their hiring practices these days.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Maggie, because they're definitely more flexible. Like when I worked in corporate recruiting, it was, this is the job, these are the skills, these are experiences, like done. They don't have it, move on. But they're much more flexible because there is a labor shortage and there's a skills shortage. So they're also
labor shortage and skills shortage. That's good for people to hear because they're pretty nervous out there, some folks.
Yes. And so it's, I don't want to say easier, but it can be more, can be better right now, more beneficial to the job seeker now than, let's say, before the pandemic, to use their transferable skills. So employers are being more flexible in terms of, more lenient, I should say, in what they're looking for. And that goes for education as well. So it may not necessarily be that 4-year degree, like a bachelor's degree, not from undergrad. It might be certifications or other online training, internships, work experiences, and things like that.
That's good for career changers, especially. Another hot topic that people are focused on, not only having that job, but AI, of course, in the career space is something everyone's talking about. And recently I saw a blog post on Monster hiring that you wrote that talked about it being time for employers. I really like this, to focus on upskilling of their employees. And basically, I'd love to know how you suggest that companies help their existing employees gain the technical know-how required for this new AI powered area we're in.
Yeah, it's an exciting time because AI is not going away. It's here to stay. And for companies as well as employees to embrace it. We know at Monster in our Work Watch report that dropped in January, about 4 out of 10 employers said they offer training and resources to workers for training and development. So back to your question, Maggie, is having hopefully more companies on board to roll out training, but then also encourage their employees, and for the employees then to be proactive and pursue it. Because it's one thing to have it available, but if they're not tapping into it to upskill themselves, it's really important, especially as employers are facing this shortage in terms of finding candidates who are viable for the job. Look at their own internal resources who are able and willing and probably would want to. I think the question becomes a little bit area of gray when employees are concerned that AA may feel like they're outsourcing their own job. So we had another survey that dropped, or poll that said some workers said that if they showed their boss some efficiencies due to AI to increase efficiencies on their job, their boss would pat them on the back and say, great job. Other people said, well, you know what? I'm afraid I'm going to get rid of my job by increasing efficiencies. So the jury's still out. So I think there may be some reluctance, but in reality, AI can certainly help people with, let's say, offload some of the mundane tasks so they could be more creative and have more deep thinking sessions with their actual work. So I think there's definitely opportunity for employers to provide valuable training and then for the employees to tap into it.
If people are really that afraid that it's going to take their job away, you're probably better off learning that now, right?
Exactly. And then learn the other skills, get ahead of the curve, skate to where the puck is going, not where it's been or where it's currently at. So you want to think about, to your point, how can this help my job if it's going to get rid of my job? What's my next job? Like, seriously, like, what's the next step? What are the next 3 steps for me? And assume that AI will be part of that next job as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I love the hockey analogy.
I'm a baseball fan, so here we go.
Oh, there you go. Right. That always helps too. There's lots of good sports analogies for careers. So you did mention the Work Watch report, right? Put out by Monster. I did find that as well, put out for 2024. And some interesting statistics, lots of them. I mean, it's actually very robust. But it said 81% of workers said their current wage has not kept up with the rising cost of living. So that's 81%. And 59% of employers said they plan to offer increased salary and wages to remain competitive in hiring. That's interesting though, right? Because it's in hiring. So does that mean that people have to change jobs to get that salary bump? Or is there a different way to maximize earning potential? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's such a great stat. Meaning there's so much we could talk about.
Yes, right. It really makes you think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the number one way for people to boost their salary is to get a new job and to do it consistently, like to work at a company for a little bit. I don't want to say I'm not advocating job hopping every 6 months, but the stigma has decreased. They're really, the red flags that I used to see when I was in recruiting are really much more diminished now than they were years ago. So it's important for job seekers or even current employees to say one of the best ways to boost their salary is to leave. But there may be other obligations. They may really like their boss, like their job, and say, well, where does this leave me? Talk to your boss about a promotion. Maybe there are ad hoc bonuses you can get throughout the year. Maybe you can negotiate more time off or decreased hours. If they aren't able to increase your pay, think about things out of the box that could be priorities for you and where you are in your life right now, but ultimately keep your eye on the prize and always know your worth. So this way you can go to your boss and say, this is what the market says, talk to your former boss, former colleagues, professional organizations, put together, gather information from a variety of sources, and then take the average or, leverage their insight based on your work skills, your work experiences and your skills, where that puts you in terms of salary, and then talk to your boss. And then say, I have all these accomplishments here, point them out. And this is what the market will bear. What are we doing about that? Not to make them defensive, but have an open dialogue with them and see what they say. And their reaction to you can speak volumes. Like, watch their body language, see maybe they are on board with you and say, you know what, you are underpaid. You are worth this amount. We know if you leave, it'll cost us X amount of dollars to replace you anyway. So there are a lot of factors in play. Your boss may go to bat for you, but then not be able to come up with the money that you need. So that conversation with your boss is very telling. And I always advise job seekers to do it anyway, because number one, it gets you in the habit of knowing your worth and articulating it. But two, you're ready then to look for a new job. You already know what your worth is. You've already had that conversation, and it gives you more options.
Yeah, it gives you that confidence too, right? This is all good exercise in being assertive. Right? Standing up for yourself or speaking up for yourself. Yeah. And you're really right. I did have a client who I started working with while she was happy in her job and did want to get a bigger salary. So we did work on that. She did her research. She had her conversation. And then she ended up getting a new job opportunity that she was going after. They kind of found her and she was prepared. So you're absolutely right. That is really smart to always know your worth. It's really fun to hear from a colleague in the career space and understand the trends and opportunities from your perspective, Vicky. There's actually another thing I want to talk to you about. It was an article for Biz Journals that you were actually quoted in saying companies should focus on building strong retention plans and fostering a culture where employees can bring up issues without fear of retribution. Sounds very interesting. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I just want to start off by saying in the fall, Monster, our poll data showed that the majority of employees said the scariest department for them to approach at work is HR. So that says a lot about fears in the workplace, because usually when you have an issue, who's the first person you go to? Someone in HR. So when we talk about retention, and just want to begin with the end in mind, ultimately, the beautiful, magical secret sauce to having an ecosystem where you have retention, you have employees who are happy, they're engaged, they're satisfied. You're an awesome coach, Maggie, but they don't need coaching because
right.
They're paid well and they're living their passion and their purpose. And it's just this beautiful thing. And they don't want to leave. And they're paid really well. They get benefits, really excellent work benefits. And then that goes external. They don't leave. So there's retention. And then if there is a job opening for recruiting, it's easier to market a company where people want to work and they're knocking on your door rather than you say, we don't have any applicants here. So circling back to the retention. So retention is really important. And then getting back into having this culture where people feel safe is so important. They feel safe to speak up in terms of they have ideas and they're not going to be judged. And they're actually positively reinforced for having these ideas and encouraged to speak up. They're recognized, they're seen, they're valued. And it doesn't take companies a lot of money to do this or a big cultural change overnight. It could just be like a boss saying, thank you. This is a great idea. And acknowledging them in front of a group as well as individually. So I think it's really important in terms of hopefully reducing any fear of retribution. And then it goes to other levels as well. That's one aspect. But then it could be if you see, let's say your boss is saying something unethical or something happened, someone is stealing from the company and you want to turn to someone, but what if that's your boss that's doing it, or you want to go to HR? So it's important, I think, for companies to improve upon this area and really think about how can we improve? How can we, number one, create this culture that starts, like I said, from something very simple as saying thank you, but also internally, maybe training the managers, doing some internal cultural, an internal audit, doing an upward feedback survey from employees. We know what would help you most. How do you feel safe? More, I would think, psychologically than physically safe, but also maybe there's a hotline that needs to happen. Maybe there's a third party that needs to get involved. If it's a startup, it can be more challenging. If it's a toxic work environment, you know where to go. And then again, for the job seeker, their only their only exit at that point, their only strategy at that point may be the exit door to look for a new job, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. And companies, I think, if they focus again on that ecosystem that I mentioned a minute ago, to have this great, robust culture that people want to work, number one, because it's the right thing to do, first and foremost, then they won't have to think about any retribution. And they may also lead from, bosses saying, I made a mistake, but hey, this is what happened. I'm owning it and we are moving on from this. So people know it's okay to fail and it's okay to make a mistake, admit it, own it, and learn from it, and then move on.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think it's a big area that it's almost like untapped opportunity for companies to provide for this. And when I was at Martha Stewart in my own HR role, it was in training and development, so it wasn't on the other side of HR. But in fact, I think it helped because I became a safe, trusted place where employees could come and bring issues, and they could trust that I would deal with it appropriately so that they wouldn't get in trouble, quote unquote, or have backlash. But at the same time, you have to know those issues if you're going to be effective in HR. So it behooves the company to really understand what's going on. So that's some really good points. And it does tie into retention, because if employees don't feel they have a voice, and they have other options, they'll leave. They'll vote with their feet, right? They'll move on.
But kudos to you for creating a safe environment and a safe experience for them. So they knew when they came to you, they could come to you again. And they knew it would also be confidential and you're professional and approachable and you listen. And that's key, like being a great listener and having empathy is key for these employees. And then it helps the employer because if their retention is boosted, then hopefully they're more happy at work, they're more productive, they're satisfied. And then they don't have to recruit someone off the street who then they need to hire, assimilate to find the right fit, et cetera, the culture, everything.
Yeah, it does take a lot of time, energy, and resource. For sure. Well, Vicki, this has been so insightful. Are there other things? Just one last question. If there's anything else you're working on that can give us kind of a preview into the rest of 2024?
Yeah, well, I think it's an exciting year in terms of we talked about upskilling, we talked about AI, and in our Work Watch report in January, the 95% of respondents said they're looking for a new job this year. So I think
95%.
Yes. And this to me is on par with like the Great Resignation that we saw a couple years ago. So it's interesting to see underneath that what's driving it, which is salary, burnout. People want flexibility. They're telling us at Monster time and time again in terms of where and when they work. And in the UK, something that's interesting is recently, you probably heard about it, the 4-day workweek trial that was so successful that the majority of employers, after the trial ended, they said, you know what, we're going to continue. So I think that's really interesting. A lot of exciting spaces to watch this year.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I'm hearing from employees, all those things sound really good. So we're on the right track. Well, Vicki, Salemi, thank you so much for being here, sharing your insights, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Same here. Thanks.
Now that we've heard from Vicki, it's time for your career tip. This one is about establishing your definition of work-life balance. It seems there's always a reason to be busy. When the economy is good, we're busy because there's too much work coming in. When the economy is bad, we're busy because we have to do more with less. Even the actual word business implies that to be productive, we have to always be busy. Get it? Busyness? But developing the proper work-life balance is a critical component in determining your ideal career. Being busy doesn't always correlate to being happy. That's why I lead my clients to get clarity on their ideal work-life situation when working on their ideal careers. Here are some suggestions to help you determine yours. First, think fit, not balance. Callie Williams-Yost, founder of Work Life Fit Inc., revolutionized the way I look at work and life. She says that balance presents an all-or-nothing approach that's unrealistic for most people. She recommends focusing instead on the right fit between work and home demands. To do that, Callie suggests making a complete calendar. Most people would have a better work-life fit if they made more conscious decisions about where they are spending their time. Putting down all of your work and all of your personal commitments into one calendar will give you that insight. Review the calendar after a few months and understand where your time is going. Then start making more informed choices to create a more optimal schedule, given your career needs and goals, as well as your life goals. Next, imagine your ideal schedule. When working with my clients, I always ask them to consider what they would do if they had complete control over their time. To help them understand control, I ask them questions like, do you want to travel often, travel occasionally, or never travel? Do you want to work from home, work from an office, or a combination? Do you want to have a structured schedule or a flexible schedule? Do you want to work full-time or part-time? As you answer these questions for yourself, write them down. And any additional specifics, make sure you put down what you want. Again, don't focus on what you think is possible. Focus on your ideal. We are redefining the realistic, so trust it. Next, be proactive. Many people think flexible work arrangements aren't an option, so they never ask. That's precisely why you need to be proactive. Go to your boss with options and ask for feedback on them. Most managers are too busy, yes, they're too busy too, to focus on how to best manage your work life. You know your job best, so come up with a better, faster, or cheaper way to get the work done in a way that fits your flexible schedule, and your boss will be more apt to say yes. A client enjoyed her sales position, but as a single mother of two, wanted to adjust her work schedule. Even as a strong performer, she was afraid to ask for flexibility. I posed the question, what would you do with complete control of your schedule? She answered, I'd work mornings from home with the option to work from the office in the afternoon. Now, with greater clarity on her work-life situation, I instructed my client to get feedback on the idea from her manager. Notice I said feedback. She did, and to her surprise, her manager was open to the idea, with one caveat. She had to be in the office for weekly team meetings every Tuesday morning. Wow, it worked. Yes, it did. Now when I see this client, she's enjoying her flexible schedule and wonders why she took so long to ask for what she wanted. I wonder about that too for so many people. So as you can see, there is more to making a great living than just being busy. In fact, it's not about being busy at all. It's about making conscious choices about how you spend your work and personal time. You need to make your ideal schedule an element of your ideal career. Since time is money, or so they say, next time I'll focus on a major hang-up for many of my clients. And it's so important, I made salary, yes, its own element. You won't want to miss it. To hear more tips like this, check out previous episodes of Making a Living with Maggie and purchase my book, Are You Ready to Love Your Job? Make a Great Living Through Soul Search, Research, and Job Search. Available at MaggieMistel.com and on Amazon, where it ranks #1 as a new release in Job Search. I'm sorry to say that we've run out of time. Thanks for joining again. I'll be back next month. Here's a quote to keep you inspired from Orison Swett Martin. Work, love, and play are the great balance wheels of man's being. And I would even say, man's well-being. Thanks for listening. I'm Maggie Mistel, your career coach, inspiring you to make a great living.
To understand more about how Maggie can help with your individual career needs and goals, contact her at MaggieMistel.com or Facebook.com/Making a Living with Maggie Mistel. Together we can all make a great living. Great living.